I call this meeting of Sylvania City Council for February 22nd, 2022 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Hanum?
Here.
Mr. McCann?
Here.
Mr. Richardson?
Here.
Ms. Stowe?
Here.
Mrs. Westfall?
All 7 members of City Council are present, therefore a quorum does exist. February 22nd, 2022 is a once-in-a-lifetime date. It is a palindrome. In fact, the whole week is full of dates that are palindromes, which means they read the same forward and backwards. You never have this again in your life. All right. We welcome Mrs. Cappellini and her son back. Mr. Hanson, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Additions to the agenda. It's not an addition, but information item D. Mr. Stanford would like to make a brief presentation about that potential bird scooter program. So we'll let Mr. Stanford speak on that informational item just for a few moments. Mr. Fry.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Sanford, or members of council, any additional items from you? Thank you. Mr. Sanford. Nothing. Mr. Schroyer. Captain Miller. Thank you for being with us tonight. Mr. Aller. Nothing. And Mrs. Brining. So it was just a small change to the agenda, but is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the agenda is approved for this evening. Agenda item 4 is approval of the meeting minutes from February the 7th. While you were in the chair, Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, well, actually, I don't know. Is this appropriate for?
It is.
Okay.
No one had a better view of it than you did.
I understand, but Mrs. Westfall was technically president.
I did watch you all live on YouTube. That was an interesting experience to see that. At some time, you ought to watch it yourself. You have to watch it on tape, but it was interesting to see to hear how well you could hear, and you can see fairly well. So well done, Chuck. Thank you. Mr.
Mayor, I just noted that the legislature just extended the ability to have participate.
They did, I think, through the end of June.
Yeah, at least through June, and if somebody's going to be out of town and wants to participate in a meeting, that would be a way for them to continue to. Not that I have anything planned, I'm just noting it in case it happens to somebody, to any of us.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Fry, approval of the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move approval of the meeting minutes for the council meeting of February 7th, 2022 as submitted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes of February 7th, 2022 as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and those meeting minutes are approved. Agenda item 5 is Special Resolution 6/2022, commending and thanking Katie Cappellini for her service on council. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, before I read the resolution, I just wanted to extend my thanks to Katie personally for the help and the perspective that she brought to me over the years as a member of council, particularly when I was first on council. So I certainly appreciate that, and wanted to put this resolution in front of council for consideration. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce resolution number 6, 2022, and I will read by title only. Commending and thanking Katie Cappellini for her contributions during her 14 years of service to the Sylvania community as a member of Sylvania City Council. I move adoption of resolution number 6, 2022 as an emergency measure.
Been moved and seconded that resolution number 6, 2022 be presented as read by title only and presented as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and Resolution 6, 2022 is enacted as an emergency measure.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to pass around the resolutions so that all
Why
the
don't we
members
do
of
that
council can sign that.
Right away.
Mr. Mayor, if I could make a comment while that's being passed around.
Certainly.
I'd just like to echo Mr. Fry's remarks of appreciation to Mrs. Cappellini for her service here on council. You certainly brought a lot to the table during your time here, and I'm certain that you'll continue to be involved in our community. Your efforts in the downtown area and in the parks and recreation area were definitely noted and made a huge difference, so we appreciate all that.
Good thing, Katie, is you don't have, good thing is you don't have to stay for the rest of
All right, let's return to the agenda. We are up to agenda item 6. It's the first of 5 items on here that, once again, have Mr. Aller at the podium. I think it's a function of the time of the year, with the days getting longer, the temperatures getting warmer, construction season approaching. We need to get these things out to bid or under contract, and that's why he's making so many appearances. With that, the first one, agenda item 6, is Eldon Ditch Watershed Improvements Phase 1. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance that we have in front of you is for the engineering work that will be done on that project for the storm detention area. The project is estimated at $233,427. We were successful with one of our 2021 OPWC applications, and this project will receive $91,000 in grant funds towards that project. We also have, because of the additional benefits that it provides to Sage Yard and their ball fields and parking area, they've agreed to contribute $49,500 towards the project. So we have a little more than half project have partners in it, so to speak, for the funding. So we are ready to move forward with engineering. Fishbeck engineers provided a proposal, the amount of $27,840 to complete the engineering on this phase. The funds were included in our 2022 budget out of our storm sewer and ditch maintenance funds, our 503 account, and we would recommend approval of the proposal from Fishbeck in the amount of $27,840. I do plan to, that is a full study. There are 3 or 4 other projects recommended as part of that study, and so we will bringing that information to you at a later meeting to provide what is recommended as a part of that full study.
Mr. Aller, a part of the full study for the Eldon Ditch mitigation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Eller, I have a question as well. This is phase 1 of a 4-phase project? Sounds like.
Yeah, I believe I've obviously read the study, and I don't see, it's one of 4 or one of 5. I forget if we broke that. We're going back and forth on whether to combine 2 of the sections, and I don't remember if we ended up with 4 phases or 5. But that's what I'll bring to you and lay out kind of the whole study, council, and what we have, what we'll be looking.
Will, and it may be too early to know this, but will Sagard be asked to provide more funding for the
Future phases will not likely involve Sage.
Okay.
We'll continue to go after OPWC funds. Those are always an unknown. This project was the last project funded this year, right at the bottom, but
The
Just snuck it
lowest
in.
rated project to receive funding.
Good job.
it was close.
It is good grantsmanship. That's exactly right. This project, this ordinance 14, 2022 was tabled at the last meeting while the correct proposal was reattached to it. So first I need a motion to take it off the table for reconsideration.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to take ordinance 14, 2022 off the table for reconsideration. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. McCann, ordinance 14, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only ordinance number 14-2022, accepting the proposal of Fishback to provide professional engineering services for the Eldon Ditch Watershed Improvements Phase 1 project, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $27,840. I move passage of ordinance number 14-2022 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 14, 2022 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 14, 2022 is enacted as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item 7. This is phase 2 of the large diameter sanitary sewer lining project. I'm sure many of you saw construction work on Sylvania Avenue and McCord Road last year, but I suspect none of you are seeing the finished project since then.
I hope not.
This is our largest capital improvement project this summer. It will be visible only during construction. It goes out of sight after that, but these are old concrete pipes that are deteriorating from the sewer chemicals and the sewer gas. And we are out front getting this taken care of, mostly with a lot of OPWC funds to do it. Other communities are beginning to pick this up and doing it, including Lucas County themselves. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we received bids on January 14th of this year. Received 6 bids for the project. The lowest bid was submitted by Granite Inliner out of Hilliard, Ohio, with a bid of $1,097,358.30. That bid was approximately a little over 21% under the engineer's estimate, and the bids were very close. We had 3 bids within 4% of each for this project. So that's a pretty tight window for half of the bidders to be that tight. So Granite Inliner's been in business for several years. They haven't done any work for the city, but I've been familiar with them almost my entire career. Been around for a long time. So we do have Ohio Public Works Commission grant funds, as the mayor mentioned. That'll cover 44.6% of the project, which in this case is $489,421.08. The remaining cost of $607,936.50 is the city's responsibility. And if you recall, at the last meeting, council approved an Ohio Water Development Authority loan to cover that amount over a 20. Therefore, it's our recommendation to move forward with Granite Inliner, amount of $1,097,358.30. And this project was included in the budget as part of our sewer account, or the 702 account.
And to clarify, Mr. Aller, the cost of this project was included in your sewer rate increase?
That's
I believe
correct.
it was 35 cents
That's
per
correct.
1,000 gallons earlier this year.
Yep, approximately 10 cents of that 35 cents, approximately 10% of that is for debt payments that will result.
And again, this is totally a sanitary sewer fund project. This is not a normal city capital improvement funds at all. All right. Any questions for Mr. Aller? Hearing none. For Hanson, we have ordinance 21, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only, ordinance number 21-2022, accepting the bid of Granite Inliner LLC, awarding the contract for the large diameter sanitary sewer lining project, Phase 2 to same, authorizing the expenditure for the improvements amount of $1,097,358.30, appropriating funds therefore. Move for passage of ordinance number 21-2022 as an emergency measure.
It's been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 21, 2022 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 21, 2022 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you. What's your anticipated schedule for completing this?
We'll reach out to the contractor. It has to be completed by November 30th. That's the required substantial reasons, OPWC required schedule. And also, I'd like to have the OW wrapped up by the end of.
And where is the majority of this lining going?
Majority of this lining there's a short section on Sylvania Avenue. That will be a very short-term option. And then the remainder is we head north on Eaglehurst to the dead end. There's a short section that goes over east, basically to 475, run along the west side of I-475. It's all in private easement, but this project won't have nearly the disruption. You won't see much of it, really.
We won't be closing McCord Road and Central Avenue
No, we will
intersection
not
this
do
year?
that. No, hopefully that's the only time I have to do that.
All right, very good. Let's move on to agenda item 8. This is the Main Street Reconstruction Project, south of 10 Mile Creek. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is basically goes from 10 Mile Creek to just south of Ravine Drive. It'll be a full-width reconstruction. We'll also include a road diet. Pavement through that area is quite wide. We don't plan on reducing the width or anything. The curbs will stay as is. But as a part of this project, we'll install bike lanes in that section of. That will be the starting point of getting us further to the south, with the anticipation of being able to get us to least Convent Boulevard and perhaps ultimately. But the traveling lanes will be reduced with bike lanes on both sides of the road. Other improvements include storm sewer upgrades. That'll also be done through the cured in place methods that we're using in the larger diameter, as well as a traffic signal replacement at St. Joe's. The construction for the project is actually scheduled for 2024. First part that we're asking for permission to advertise tonight is for us to advertise for to request letters of interest from consulting firms. The total estimated cost of the project at this point is $884,005. We do have surface transportation block grant funding already in place for in the amount of $400,000. And when the right application cycle comes up, we will be applying for funds, and this project will will be a strong contender for those funds. So I would anticipate that we would have $100,000, no more than $100 of city dollars in this project. We'll probably go after the rest of that with OP. We do ask for permission to advertise 4 letters of interest from engineering consultants because of the ODOT funding. It's just the standard process involved with an ODOT project. We're asking.
Questions for Mr. Eller? Yeah.
As I was thinking about this, I recall that on Sundays, oftentimes those who are going to attend St. Joe's service at they will park along the street on both sides of the street because it is so wide. If you haven't already, it might be worth reaching out to them to let them know that we're installing these bike lanes and the parking may not be as open. That way we can take care of any questions ahead of time and maybe help show them the positives of adding bike lanes and maybe parking in the lot and or making sure they still have enough.
Good point. We will make contact.
Thank you.
Mr. Richardson, we need a motion to authorize requesting consultant letters of interest.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would make a motion to authorize administration to begin the LOI solicitation process for the Main Street reconstruction project.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and it is authorized by this council to begin that request for letters of interest. Moving on to agenda item 9. This is a memorandum of understanding with the Sylvania School District to provide electric power to our data collection units sitting on several of the school buildings. Those have been in place for 10 to 15 years. And they have been battery operated with solar collectors for some time, but why don't you tell us why you're making a change?
Several times throughout those years, and especially in the last 3 years, we changed the batteries out in those years, probably about 4 years. Yeah, it was 4 years ago. But unfortunately, the last 3 years, during the winter months, non-summer months, had a lot of gray skies. Batteries just are not able to, solar panels just are not able to charge. When that occurs, we don't receive, depending on what data collection unit doesn't have power to it at that point, we don't receive water meter readings from that area, and water and sewer bills need to be estimated for any homes that don't get reported. So we estimate for that month, take care of things, hopefully some more sun so that the battery will charge. We have had instances where we've had to estimate for 2 months in a row, which that third month can really be a pretty big surprise to the homeowner, depending on how that estimating process goes. So, because of that, what we're taking a look at doing is changing those units out to electrical power, both the ones that are on the schools as well as the other ones that we have on poles throughout the city. And taking a look at the power needs, it's less than $5 per site. Well, actually, in talking with the schools, rather than putting in a separate electrical service and all of that, just talk to them about basically connecting to some existing power that they might have on the roofs of the schools. Utilizing. When they saw what the power demand was, they had no issue with that. And they've approved this agreement. They approved it at their school board meeting on 7th. And so we would just ask for approval of the memorandum of understanding for our DCs to utilize school power.
The remote water meter reading program that was put in place 10 or 15 years ago under Service Director Jeff Palmer has been a great success. We've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in annually going around and reading those meters. We've also saved many of our residents that are out of town, had a water leak spring into their basements or crawl spaces. We were able to detect those as well. City of Toledo has finally embarked on a similar program. This has been a great success, and we'll talk about it again later in the agenda, another item coming up later. But with that, I recommend approval of ordinance 22, 2022. Mr. McCann.
Thank you, Mr. I'd like to introduce by authorizing
Second.
Been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 22, 2022 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 22, 2022 is enacted as an emergency measure.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fry.
I'm sure that this will be done, but just in case, quick thank you shout out to the public schools for allowing us to interconnect with their system. And it's an insignificant amount of money, but it's still a benefit to the community overall for them to allow us to connect to their facility. So
They've been very cooperative through the process and had the appropriate questions, but once we got them answers, then
Mrs. Westfall.
that's correct. Yes.
One of them sits on top of City Hall, and a couple of them are pole mounted. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have 3 that are pole mounted. One of those we're actually taking a look at relocating some issues. Three pole and the main one on City. Sure, my count was.
Right. It's right here in there. It's Highland, Sylvan, Arbor Hills, and McCord are where the units are. All right. Let's turn to page 2 of our agenda. We're up to agenda item 10. This is the purchase of a new small dump truck for the sewer division. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the existing small dump truck that the sewer division has is a 2006 vintage. It has served us well. but it is becoming, starting to show its age as well as be in shop as much as it's on the so that's what we use as a guide. I do want to make sure that council knows, and that being a 2006, I'm sure you understand, we don't use mileage factors. We don't use any of those kinds of guides that some other cities until it starts causing us too many. And then that's when we've lengthened the life of vehicles for several years now. We've done it in the police division, and we've done it in the service division. Do our best to make sure we get the money out of the that we purchase. One of the things you'll see, I'll actually be back to you in a couple weeks with several other vehicle purchases that were all within the budget. But we will be making adjustments to some of those vehicles. It's amazing what 2 or 3 weeks difference makes. You're obtaining quotes, this equipment. We've seen just in this price here with the vehicle itself is about $18,000 more last year. Same. When I come back to you in 2 weeks, that price is going to be higher for the same. And it's companies that used to be on the state term pricing are pulling state term pricing. They're just closing the contracts at order. We cannot order this vehicle off of the state term. That contract's been closed. Can order from the 2023 state term pricing, but you won't know what that is. And so we decided not. This one we got it in good time. One of the next vehicles that we obtained the quote good time. 2 weeks difference is amazing. Probably about $8,000. Just not only this, but the bed package that will be coming with you that we put onto the trucks. Those costs are climbing. We are making adjustments to what we had previously requested as part of the capital improvement plan. Again, we're going to make the vehicles last longer than with the pricing that we're seeing out there. We consciously. We are asking to move forward with tonight's vehicle. Dave White Chevrolet has provided, and they've been working with us. They've been fantastic. See that as we come next week. They've been working with us. Several phone calls on their part to obtain vehicles. And that they've been a great partner through this. But we do ask for approval to move forward with the purchase of a 2020 Chevy Silverado 5500 cab and chassis from Dave White Chevrolet in the amount of $51,805.78. This truck was included in the 2022 operating budget out of the sewer fund, the 702 fund. We ask for permission to move forward.
Thank you for that explanation. You know, it's a shame that the state term contracts are not working, but the benefit of it is we can work with Dave White rather than some out-of-town dealer that's under state term. So I approve of that and appreciate it. Mr. Hanson, we have proposed ordinance 23, 2022 to approve this purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 23-2022, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal, Dave White Chevrolet, for the provision of a new 2022 Chevrolet Silverado 5500 cab and chassis, the Division of Sewer, Department of Public Service, appropriating $51,805.78 therefore. Move for passage of ordinance number 23-2022 as an emergency measure.
Been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 23, 2022 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance number 23, 2022 is enacted as an emergency measure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aller. We go on to agenda item 11. This is to amend and restate our operating agreement with the senior center. This originates back to when the new senior center was built 20 years ago. And we had provisions in that for the repayment of the loan, plus who would be responsible for maintenance of the facility and the operating agreements for it. Mrs. Brining has worked with the senior center to renegotiate and restate this agreement. Mrs. Brining.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor indicated, we worked with both the Sylvania Senior Center, who Gary Summer is a member of their board, and Mr. Hanem, I believe you're city council representative on the board, so, and I'm sure you know, the board also approved the agreement on Friday. The president did email me and let me know that, and the township has already approved it as well. So just the way our meeting schedules fell, they were first last week, so we are the last to consider it. But the changes to the agreement after 20 years were mostly made just to reflect the actual practice and how things operate. The reporting is done annually for activities and programs, but they do send monthly financial reports over, so anybody has any questions on that. The parking, that was originally, I think there was some concern that that would be a bigger issue than what it has turned out to be, which is always good. Insurance and responsibility, that section was changed just to really in recognition that there are 3 taxpayer-funded organizations and groups that are represented in this agreement, so it really doesn't, we should just all take care of our own if there's an issue. And the other major issue that I wanted to just mention to you that was amended was the termination provision in the event that the levy, for some reason, isn't passed or approved. The senior Sylvania, we're not going to hold them responsible for still operating the programming that they do. So those were the primary changes, and everything seems to be really working well. I know Claire Proctor recently retired, so, but everything seems to be going well, so I would recommend its approval.
Questions? Senior center was built under the city's leadership to replace the old senior center in the basement of the now demolished Burnham building. It was built with a lot of state of Ohio capital improvement funds. It was also built with help from the Lucas County Senior Levy, and the remainder of it was bonded by the city with an agreement that the city could reach directly into the township tax receipts to pay their part of the bond repayment if they changed hands and chose not to pay their share of it. That was negotiated by Mr. Plock. It's worked very well over the years. Toby, I don't know if you know what the status of those bonds are, but they ought to be about done, I would think. No, so that's an agreement that's worked out well over the years. We do have ordinance 24, 2022 to approve this new operating agreement. Ms. Stowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 24-22 by title only, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an amended and restated operating agreement on behalf of the city of Sylvania, Ohio, Sylvania Township, and Sylvania Community Services Center, Incorporated, for Sylvania Community Services Center's maintenance and operation of the senior center. I move final passage, or I move just passage, I'm still adding that final. I move for passage of ordinance number 24-22 as an emergency.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 24, 2022 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 24, 2022 is enacted as an emergency measure. Agenda item 12 is our new requirement from the state auditing process for then and now certificates. Mr. Schroyer, why don't you?
Just as
It is the city's intention to try to avoid most of these in the future, other than emergency responses. The biggest one on this is for the remote meter reading situation. It's on here as pulse MTUs for the utility department. Those are the actual transmitting units that go on the individual water meters in people's basements and garages. Those are also between 10 and 15 years old. The batteries are built in, and those are being replaced as they fail around the city. I know it was replaced in my home maybe 6 months ago, and you may have gotten the calls in your homes. This is the other end of that remote water meter reading system, which has been a great success, a great money saver for the city of Sylvania. Are there any questions about any of the other items on there? Hearing none, Mr. Fry, we need a motion to approve these now, then and now certification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion to approve the then and now certifications for the period of December 21st, 2021 through February 4th, 2022.
Moved and seconded to approve these then and now certificates dated February 22nd, 2022. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the list of then and now certifications is approved. Agenda item 13, are there any committee reports to be made at this time? Or agenda item 14, committee referral. Mrs. Westfall.
Aller.
We've combined that project with the improvements at Monroe and Silica. Will be taking place at the same time. The bridge is not unsafe, but it dates back to the 1920s. It served well, but it's time for replacement. It was not in the worst category, which was unsafe.
Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate at this time to ask about the 911 service?
Absolutely. We've all been reading about it in the press. We've also had direct contact with Lucas County 911, but perhaps Captain Miller or Mr. Aller. Mr. Aller is our representative on the RCOG committee, can report on this, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do 2 weeks from tonight.
I did receive an email, probably. Our practices that for proper. They actually conducted a tour. part of that. Actually see, should have occurred. Fortunate incident.
Channel 13, 6 o'clock news reported on that tour today, and they showed the actual screen and the choices that come up on the screen where the mistake was made. And what should have happened, that didn't happen, they actually show the intersection. Person that called, several callers said in Sylvania, but they did not back up and do it. Now, you've all seen the picture of the burning car on the news, I would assume, because it took over 7 minutes for our fire crews to arrive. And I've discussed it with Chief Ram here last Thursday morning. We talked about that problem as well. There were two brothers, one of which lives near that intersection, who called it in several times, as did some other bystanders. His brother actually went out when nobody came and they saw the first indications of flames coming out of that car and helped get the woman out of the car. And thank heavens he did, or we would have had severe injury or death as a result of the fire that came up. It's the city administration's intent to recommend Mr. May for a Safety Council of Northwest Ohio citizen recognition. There's a recognition put on by that council every year, but we're also inviting him to our council meeting, our next council meeting that comes up on Monday, May the 7th, where we're going to give him a city merit award as well. Probably saved a life. And the news reporting would have been much different if he had not gone out and taken the initiative to pull that person out of the car. Once the Sylvania Township Fire Department was alerted to it, they were there in less than 2 minutes. But they got the call 5 late.
Trailer. Obviously, this particular situation, an unfortunate circumstance, made the news. Do you have a sense of how frequently this has occurred on the one situation we've been discussing?
Have it, similar in that that was a it was an outline. City of our stamp. Our cog is
More focused on Sylvania area.
Confident in the plan they have. Are challenged in that.
that's definitely a higher. I think they thought that more of the dispatch are 6. I think right that is
I'm not aware of any injuries. Captain, do you know the answer? You've probably noticed the changes that have been made to the entrance to this building. The automatic sliding doors have been replaced with hinge doors for more security. There's a bench sat in there, there's a phone, so that if somebody comes to this police station after our occupied hours, they can go in there, and a police officer will come as quickly as they can to assist anybody that's in that vestibule. To secure building and secure them from anybody that might be chasing. I believe it does. That is the intent. The outer door is left unlocked, the inner door is locked. Anything else, we can put a thumb screw deadbolt on it.
which it has.
So it does work. I thought it did. I'll look on the way out. That is the intent.
It does have that. I was trying to see if
Call is placed through the dispatch or Thank you.
Certainly. There's a meeting of the ARCOG coming up next month. The board, which we're a member of, only approved a 6-month operating agreement to provide more oversight and more input rather than letting it go a year. There'll be lots of discussion next. All right, if there's no further business, I draw your attention to a couple of things in the information items. First is the report from the police department and Chief Snore about the funds in the different police funds that are available for different expenses. And item D is a memo from Mr. Sanford, who'd just like to say a few sentences about this particular scooter program.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This Mr. Michael Cavato had contacted me about this Bird, that's an electric scooter program. You may have seen them in other cities. You know, I have, they're out and around different places. I was interested in bringing it to Sylvania. Had a Zoom meeting that Kevin and I were able to see. We thought it was interesting. We didn't want to make a decision for the city. I wanted to share it with council, interest in pursuing it. The difference being that projects like this usually come from our own citizens, and this one did not. But I do think it's worth looking into and to see if there's some interest. Another place where I experienced it was at a Town and Gown meeting a couple years ago. That's where,
have to do it
because of
too.
Lord's University and universities in Ohio, they have this annual meeting. That was a big topic, that a lot of the communities that had the scooters, they were having problems. And Leslie found this article in the Monroe paper that talks about their experience with the scooter program and some problems they had with it. So again, it's Owen and who has, and I'm not sure if it's Bird, but the University of Toledo has it. Been to a game, you've seen them. Kids around them. The one thing I think when Kevin and I saw it was, you know, Lord's, getting from Lord's to downtown or Lord's to Kroger or wherever, there could be some interest in doing that. But again, I think the first step, just to see what you thought about it. If you're interested, questions, or we can set up another meeting where you can see this demonstration that put it like via Zoom. And
If there's interest, Fry can refer it to a council committee for further investigation.
that would,
Thoughts from council members in regards to interest?
I'm generally supportive of, so do it, but could.
We can put it on the agenda at our next council meeting if you want to refer it to a committee, or you can jump right in tonight and refer it.
The only other one I was debating between buildings and grounds and streets, since the actual devices are going to be used. Are they going to be used on the streets? I guess they are, right?
they are,
They are
Because you're not going to have allowed to have them on the sidewalks.
Well,
Right,
those
there
two-
has to be on
Those
the-
two committee chairmen spoke out.
those are the things we'll find out and answer all those questions. And I think it has to be on streets, mile per hour has to be 35
Are they?
or less.
But talked about, Mr. Aller had a presentation about bike lanes, and question is, are they allowed to use the bike lanes or not? So there's a lot of moving parts to that. So
Yep.
my thought process is to refer it to streets.
I'd be happy to
Sure.
take it if that's council agrees.
Are you on streets?
No, I'm buildings and grounds.
I know, no,
Oh,
but I
am
mean
I
as
on it?
chair.
No, I don't think so, no.
I don't remember off
You
the
can,
top of my head.
you can certainly attend the meetings.
Right, absolutely.
You have a handy? Zoning.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, you are, Doug.
so logically,
Mary and Brian.
so logically, if we're gonna make this referral, I would make a motion then, or somebody would make a motion to refer this. I'll make a motion to refer the potential scooter program that Mr. Roberts just discussed to the Streets Committee.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to refer information item D, potential for a bird scooter program, to the Streets Committee for further research and perhaps a recommendation.
So we don't, anticipate us scheduling a streets committee after the next council meeting? Should we schedule one between now and then?
You can do whatever you want.
Or should we wait to hear their availability on whoever proposes this? All right, let's do that. Let's not set a meeting tonight, but maybe can you reach out tomorrow, pick a time to the next, then I'll reach out to the rest of council and everybody. Good, thank you.
All right. We vote on that referral? I didn't think we did. All in favor of referring it to the Streets Committee indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That really does bring us to the end of the agenda. And the information items. If there's nothing further, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and this council stands adjourned for the next 13 days until Monday, March 7th, 2022 at 7:30 PM. Thank you all for attending.